Chelsea take on Fulham in the West London derby as Chelsea need to get back 2 winning ways after winning just 3 of our last 8 league games and of course the defeat at Tottenham a week ago. Fulham, after changing managers, are a tricky team to predict, but with Eden Hazard most likely back in the side, Chelsea should really come out on top. To find out everything you need to know about both sides ahead of the game, make sure you watch all of this preview. Hello there guys and welcome back to 100% Chelsea for my preview of the Chelsea versus Fulham game taking place on Sunday, well at lunchtime really, at 12 PM lunchtime on the dot. And that's a very early kickoff, but I am looking forward to it. Although, as a disclaimer in advance basically, I will not be able to watch and review the game, so you will have to do without me for Sunday. Of course, the other guys will still, cover the game with fan cams, with vlogs, with all sorts of content. So if you don't want to miss out on any of that, do make sure you subscribe to 100% Chelsea, and I will then be back for the preview of the Wolves game in midweek. And let's also see whether we can hit 400 or more likes in this video. That would be massively appreciated if you could smash that like button down below, because it just shows us that you do enjoy our content. But without further ado, let's get into the preview and starting it off by speaking about our opposition Fulham. And they are a bit of a weird one. Obviously, they got promoted by winning the playoffs last season after a crazy run of form, because a third into the season or so, they were close to bottom of the championship, and then they just went on this mad run and obviously managed to finish in the playoff spots and then end up winning that. In the summer, they then basically spent huge money on new players like Jean-Michel Sarri, who obviously we were also linked with, if you remember back to the summer. Andre Schürrle, obviously the former Chelsea player, they loaned out for 2 years from Borussia Dortmund. So basically until his contract there runs out, I'm pretty sure. They signed Mitrovic permanently, obviously was on loan there last season, I think. They signed, I think, 2 new goalkeepers, all sorts of players. 12 players overall, I think they signed. But their season really hasn't been great so far, like not at all. And after a horrible start to the season, being bottom of the league with just 1 win and 5 points up until before the last international break, they then ended up sacking their manager, Slaviša Jokanović. And, I get they probably did it because it was, just before the break or, during the break. But they also did it after losing 2-0 at Anfield against Liverpool, which, for a promoted side really isn't something to be sacked for, in my opinion anyway. But of course, like I said, with the international break and only being on 5 points after 11 games, you kind of expect it. But, like I said, they sacked him nonetheless and replaced him with Mr. Dilly Ding Dilly Dong, Claudio Ranieri. And, obviously we all love the guy. Everyone loves Ranieri. And it's also quite ironic because when Ranieri was in charge of Chelsea, Slaviša Jokanović, the former Fulham manager, was actually his first player signing with Chelsea. Either way though, under Jokanović, they really tried to play football. Attacking football, passing football, like they did in the Championship last season. But the main problem was especially conceding goals. Up until now, they've conceded 33 goals, which is 6 more than the team, with the second most goals conceded, which is Burnley. And, as the season went on, they also stopped scoring goals. Like at the start, they beat Burnley 4-2, scoring goals. But that also dried up. And then obviously if you don't keep clean sheets, if you concede bucket loads and don't score, well, that's never going to go well. Like in Jukanovic's last 7 games in charge, they scored just 3 goals, 0 goals in 5 of those 7 games, and conceded 20 goals. Like, you're not going to do well with stats like that. But then Ranieri comes in, and it basically all changes as they beat Southampton 3-2 to get their first win since August and score their first point since late September, obviously when they beat them last weekend. And how did he do that? Well, he basically gave the opponent the ball. In so many of their defeats under Jokanović, except against the big teams, of course, they had the majority of the ball and still got battered in a lot of cases. And against Southampton last week, under Ranieri now, they had less than 40% of it and won the game. Although they, of course, still conceded 2 goals. Against Southampton, who aren't exactly doing well themselves either, being level on points with Fulham in the bottom, 3, both on 8 points along, Cardiff, who are also in the bottom 3. So, it's not like they beat someone huge, but they won nonetheless for the first time since August. But with conceding 2 goals even against Southampton, the defensive issues certainly haven't just miraculously been solved, but at least they got a win. And like this, Fulham are a tricky side to predict. 11 games with one manager and just 5 points. New manager comes in and they win, but against another poor team. So what do you make of them? Will Ranieri do anything differently tactically than he did last week, or will he stick to the same thing? Who knows? What is interesting though is that Ranieri actually joined Sarri at Cobham for a week and watched training, etc. Obviously, early on this season. Maybe in hindsight that wasn't the smartest move, obviously because he now knows us better and not just from watching the games, but actually saw us train. But, of course, we have great memories with Ranieri, and he should and is, of course, always welcome at Chelsea, at the club. And, he was also seen at Stamford Bridge multiple times already this season, which is always great. Like, you always love to see Ranieri at the Bridge. Fulham's biggest danger men are without doubt Aleksandar Mitrovic, who's got 7 goals, and Andre Schürrle, who's on 5 goals. Now, those two together have scored 12 of their 14 total league goals this season. And Ryan Sessegnon, one of their other goal scorers, alongside Jean-Michel Sarri, who scored an absolute screamer early on in the season, only scored last week under Ranieri. So before Ranieri came in, they had 3 goal scorers. And that is quite ridiculous. Like 2 players to score 12 of their 14 goals. It's quite mad. So obviously they're the biggest danger man. But overall though, looking at their squad, Fulham shouldn't be where they are in the table. They really shouldn't. They have a good squad. They sign good players. Maybe they sign too many players and, try to do things a little bit too drastically when getting promoted. They really shouldn't be where they are, in my opinion. And because of that, I still expect a difficult game, but hopefully Ranieri hasn't sorted out all the defensive problems yet. And realistically, we should, of course, get the win because, as much as they are a good team and have good players, we're a better team and have much better players. With that being it about Fulham, as you should know by now, there are no press conferences. Basically after we play on Thursday night in the Europa League, there are no press conferences ahead of the Premier League game on the following weekend. So there is nothing new to report. Of course, Sarri gave a post-match press conference yesterday, but that was mostly about the game. So, not really any news. So let's get straight into Chelsea. But one thing that still happened yesterday I do want to mention is that Cesc Fabregas, in an interview after the game, revealed something very interesting. First of all, alongside saying that he won't leave in January, but might leave, in the summer. Obviously, his contract runs out in the summer and he can basically sign for anyone in advance, for the summer from January onwards. So, he might leave. We'll have to wait and see about that. But he also stated that he already knows which games he will play in December. That's basically already planned with Sarri, basically when he will play. I'm not sure whether that's the case for every position and every player, but at least, Fabregas knows. And I find that quite interesting because Sarri is clearly planning ahead, quite a lot of detail and being fully open about it with his players as well, which, I personally like a lot. One thing that Sarri did say yesterday that I am going to mention is that last night's game didn't change anything for the Fulham game, which isn't surprising, but still interesting. Obviously, we had a good performance yesterday. We got a good win yesterday, but it was against, with all due respect, a low opposition, and they were also down to 10 men for almost the majority of the game, for almost the whole game. So, it is kind of understandable. It doesn't change much, but, you could also think maybe 1 or 2, performances here and there might, convince him of possibly they should start on Sunday. But according to him, at least, it didn't really change much to what he had already planned for the Fulham game. So with all of that said, let's talk about the lineup that I think will field on Sunday. Obviously, Kepa will stay in goal. There's no question about that. I also think that the back four will almost certainly go back to what it has basically always been in the league, of Azpilicueta, Alonso, Rudiger and David Luiz. Even though I know a lot of you aren't happy with Alonso, especially aren't happy with David Luiz. Some of you even aren't happy with Azpilicueta. And, I can understand all of them have made mistakes. Also, Rudiger wasn't great against Tottenham. The whole team was poor against Tottenham. But I'll say it again. Us conceding goals like the 3 goals we conceded at Spurs, even when defenders make mistakes, it is still a consequence of problems of the whole team, especially a lack of or just poor pressing. When we play with an idea of passing football and when we're off the ball, pressing. We need to press the opponent. That's what we try to do. And when you fail at pressing, the defenders are basically thrown under the bus and have basically the whole world to deal with, basically by themselves. So that is always tricky. So it's not as easy as blaming the defenders, changing the defenders, and it's all great. It's not as easy as signing Ramos and Varane or whoever, and then it's all sorted, because then we'd have much better defenders. No, if the pressing ahead of them doesn't work, it wouldn't be much different. But, that is still what I'm sticking with, and I'm pretty sure that Sarri will go with the same back four. In midfield, of course, Jorginho and Kante will come back into the side, and with Barkley and Ruben Loftus-Cheek playing the full 90 minutes yesterday, you also have to expect that Kovacic, will come back into the team as well. Although, I would still like to make an argument for Ruben Loftus-Cheek to maybe deserve a chance in that position in the league, simply because I don't believe that either of Kovacic and Barkley have done a great job recently. I mentioned it in yesterday's review already, so why not give Ruben a go? Of course, we won't see it on Sunday, we know that. But I think it should be given a go. I don't see him as particularly worse at really anything than those two. Yes, of course, Ruben's passing isn't anywhere near as good as Kovacic's. Understand that, but I think physically he's stronger than Barkley. Maybe shooting isn't as good, but he scored more goals than Barkley, although obviously in the Europa League. But still, Barkley played yesterday and didn't do anything. Loftus-Cheek almost scored 2 goals if it wasn't for doing incredible saves by the keeper. So, I think he should be in that conversation. I think that he should be given a chance. Hopefully, maybe against Wolves in midweek, maybe he will get the chance. Although I think it will just be Barkley against Wolves. But like I said, I'm just throwing it out there. And then in attack, Eden Hazard, if like Sarri said on Wednesday, is fit, will of course start the game, and he should be fit. Of course, he already trained on Wednesday as well, so he should be fully fine. So will Willian. He will start the other side after Pedro started last night, of course. And up front is really the only small question to be had about whether we're going to go with Morata or Olivier Giroud. Especially after Giroud hinted, on Wednesday in the press conference that he was actually due to start against Tottenham. But Sarri changed his mind due to the Frenchman arriving back at training, after the break, later than Morata did. And that was basically the main reason why he changed, who started against Tottenham. And obviously Giroud started then last night, scored 2 goals, 2 very good goals. And Morata came on and scored as well, which was also a decent goal, following, again, a very good cross by hudson-odoi. And, Fulham under Slavislav Jokanovic, I would have said Morata has to start because they're all over the place in attack. They try to play it out, so we need some pace up there because we will find gaps and, Morata can use those more than Olivier Giroud. But now under Ranieri and being more defensive, maybe Olivier Giroud is actually the better option. But, Maurizio Sarri, unless there are injuries, he doesn't really seem to play the same players in midweek and on the weekend, especially when there's 2 players in the same position of similar quality and similar form as well. So I think Morata starting is more likely. So yeah, that is the lineup that I'm going to go with. Of course, you can see it on screen and I just talk you through it. But the most important thing for the game is that we finally get more movement into the side. And that is by every single player, but especially the 2 midfielders ahead of Jorginho and the 2 wingers. Because without that, without more movement in the side, quick passing football is near on impossible. And without quick passing football, we struggle to create chances. We struggle to break teams down. And if Fulham try to take Jorginho out of the game, like for example Spurs, have done and also Everton did, without quick passing, we'll also struggle to properly control the game if they try to take Jorginho out of it. If we pass quickly, they will struggle to take Jorginho out of the game because it's difficult to be on him all the time if you just pass it around quickly and he always has a passing option. That makes it a lot easier for him and a lot more difficult for the opponent. Everything relies on more movement and quicker passing. Everything we do relies on that. We do that and we'll concede less goals, we'll create more and we'll score more as well. So it sounds simple and the principle of it is simple, but the execution isn't because otherwise we just do it perfectly every game. So it isn't easy, but I truly hope that we will get back to doing it because we did it in some games. Like we did it better against Burnley, for example, than we did against last night, than we did in any Europa League game. Even in the first game against Bata, we didn't do it anywhere near as well as we did against Burnley. So we have done it before this season, but not recently, and we need to get back to doing it. Oh, and of course, let's also not start the game like we only woke up 2 minutes before kickoff again. Because, let's actually show some intensity and determination from the get-go. Not only, 50 minutes into the game and just hoping that we don't concede in the first 50 minutes like we did at Spurs. Let's not do that again. Tomorrow, in my opinion, we'll show whether the Spurs defeat actually helped us in a sense that the players aren't feeling that full sense of security anymore that they possibly had before that because we were just winning, even though they probably knew full well that we weren't doing all that greatly. And also that they are now possibly taking in what Sarri is saying to them and telling them and what he wants from them, that they're just taking that in more and possibly putting it onto the pitch more, which would obviously be huge and, goes back to the more moving and passing quick and stuff like that. Prediction-wise, I do have high hopes, for the game on Sunday that we will properly bounce back from last week's defeat. So my prediction is going to be a 3-1 victory for Chelsea. Maybe 3-0, maybe 4-1, who knows, but I'm going to stick with the 3-1. But yeah, that's really it for me. Leave me all of your thoughts, ahead of the game down in the comment section below. Your predicted lineups, your score predictions as well, all of it down in the comment section below. Like I said in the beginning, let's see whether we can hit 400 or more likes in this video. That would be massively appreciated. So make sure you smash that like button down below. And of course, don't forget to check out my social media, which is last50-7 on both Instagram and Twitter, as you can see over here. And also the links to both of them are down in the description. So please follow me over there. That'd be absolutely great. And of course, this is YouTube. So if you haven't already, do make sure you subscribe to 100% Chelsea. And also don't forget to hit the notification bell button so you don't miss any of our future videos, basically. Like I said earlier, I won't be able to watch and review the game on Sunday. So don't be tweeting and messaging me, where's your review, when there isn't one, basically. I will, of course, watch the game, the full game, when obviously I get the time on Sunday or whatever. So I basically know what's happening and know how we played and stuff like that. We'll, of course, do that. And like I said, I will be back for the preview ahead of the Wolves game. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea. And I'll see you next time.